You know that feeling when you're walking on a treadmill and suddenly it feels like somebody else has just grabbed the remote control?
Oh, yeah, like they're just messing with the settings.
Right. They just quietly bump up the speed, just notch by notch. So first you're at this comfortable walking pace, just handling your daily tasks, getting things done.
Just coasting.
Exactly, just coasting. But then it's a brisk jog to keep up with, like, instant communication, the emails, the texts, the constant updates.
Yeah, the pings never stop.
They really don't. And before you know it, you are in a full-blown, lung-burning sprint. I mean, minute-by-minute news cycles, expectations that you'll reply to these complex messages in, seconds?
Literally seconds, yeah.
And the endless hypnotic scrolling. You are running faster than ever before. You're sweating more. You're exhausted. But here's the real question you have to stop and ask yourself. Are you actually getting anywhere? Or are you just running in place, entirely at the mercy of that runaway treadmill?
That is such a good way to frame it. Because that physical exhaustion you're describing, that feeling of being perpetually out of breath in your own life, it isn't just a cultural observation. I mean, it's a biological reality.
Wait, really? Biological?
Absolutely. We are living in this state of continuous, unyielding acceleration. And it is actively overriding our neurochemistry. Like, we are biologically adapting to this speed, but definitely not in a way that serves us.
Wow. Okay, so to figure out if we are all just running in place, we're doing a deep dive today into an excerpt from a larger work called Time Traveler's Paradox.
Right, the section titled The Cost of Speed.
Yes, exactly. And it exposes this hidden tax that, well, every single one of you listening to this is currently paying. Our mission today is to uncover how our collective obsession with moving faster and faster might actually be like shutting down our biological ability to think wisely.
Yeah, the core tension here is something I think we all wrestle with constantly in the modern world. It's this assumption that a faster decision is automatically a better decision.
Right, because we're constantly told that speed is everything.
Exactly. We've been taught to equate speed with efficiency and, efficiency with success. But when you really break down the science and the philosophy of how we operate, you're forced to confront a really uncomfortable distinction.
Which is?
There's a massive gulf between making a fast decision and making a wise one. And honestly, those two things are very rarely the same.
That hits close to home. But if being on this treadmill is so exhausting, and if it's actively stopping us from being wise, why can't we just press the stop button? I mean, why don't we just step off?
Because your brain literally won't let you.
Seriously?
Yeah. To understand why, we have to look inside our own heads to see how our biology is essentially being hijacked by speed.
Okay, so how does this actually work on a neurological level?
Well, Nick, one of the figures in the source material, he brings up this concept called the dopamine illusion. And it is crucial to understanding why we feel so trapped on the treadmill.
The dopamine illusion.
Yeah,
okay.
Right. So, moving fast, clearing out inboxes, rapid-fire multitasking, it feels incredibly productive, right?
Oh, yeah. I feel like a superhero when I clear my inbox.
Exactly. It feels like progress. And that happens because our brain's reward circuitry, specifically the dopamine system, absolutely craves novelty.
Okay, so it just wants new stuff.
Constantly. Every single time your phone buzzes with a notification, every time a new email lands, every time you fire off a rapid response and swipe a task away, your brain gets a tiny, potent hit of pleasure.
But wait, the way dopamine actually functions, that's where the trap is set, isn't it? Because from what I remember in the excerpt, it isn't rewarding the feeling of a job well done at all.
No, not even a little bit. That's the illusion. Dopamine rewards the anticipation of a reward.
The anticipation.
Yeah, the anticipation, not the actual satisfaction of it.
Oh, wow. So it rewards the hunt for the next thing, entirely ignoring the thing you're actually doing right now.
Exactly. Dopamine does not care about the present moment. And it certainly doesn't care about the depth of your current engagement. It just wants the next ping, the next headline, the next little alert.
So to keep getting that chemical reward, we basically have to speed up the inputs.
Right. We have to consume faster. We have to react faster.
Yeah.
And up the treadmill goes.
And there is a massive neurological cost to that constant acceleration, right? Because our brains actually have different functional gears.
They do, yeah.
Like, the crown jewel of human evolution is the prefrontal cortex. That's the part of the brain responsible for deep thinking, moral reasoning, holding competing ideas in your head, long-term planning, all the heavy lifting.
And the complex stuff, yeah.
Right. But the catch is the prefrontal cortex is a very slow engine. It requires a massive amount of energy, and most importantly, it requires time.
Which is the one thing we never give it. When we force our brains to constantly operate at high velocity, when we literally never give ourselves a moment to pause between stimuli, we physically cannot access that higher order thinking.
It just shuts down.
Basically, yeah. The prefrontal cortex gets bypassed. The brain says, we don't have time to process this deeply, we need to act right now. So decision-making shifts to the older, more primitive regions of the brain.
Which region?
Specifically, you fall back on the amygdala and the basal ganglia.
Okay, I want to pause on the basal ganglia for a second because, we hear about the amygdala a lot in pop science, but the basal ganglia is basically the brain's autopilot system, right? Like, it's the habit machine.
Oh, is the ultimate habit
Yeah.
machine. If you've ever, say, driven home from work and suddenly realized you're pulling into your driveway and you have absolutely no memory of the last 3 miles of the trip.
Yes, that happens to me way too often.
Right. Well, that was your basal ganglia taking over.
Yeah.
It handles rigid automatic routines, so your conscious mind doesn't have to spend energy on them,
Okay, so you combine that autopilot with the amygdala.
which is your rapid-fire threat detector.
Right, and suddenly you have a brain that is purely reacting based on habit and fear, with zero capacity for nuanced thought. Reading through the source material, it got me thinking, it's like the prefrontal cortex is a slow-cooking crock pot.
Ooh, I like that analogy.
Right. Like,
Yeah.
if you want a complex, deeply flavorful, nourishing meal, you have to let it simmer for hours. You just can't rush a crock pot.
No, you definitely can't.
But the amygdala and the basal ganglia combination, that's a microwave.
I microwave you.
It just nukes whatever you put in it instantly. It's fast, it's immediate, it gets the job done right this second. But, you are absolutely not getting a gourmet meal out of it.
Definitely not. It's just surviving the hunger.
Exactly. If we are constantly using the microwave part of our brains, constantly feeding off that dopamine anticipation, doesn't that mean we're just surviving the moment instead of actually shaping our future?
That is exactly what it means. By relying on the microwave, we lose the capacity to reflect. We only react. And the ultimate consequence of this neurological shift is that when we move too fast, we lose the ability to distinguish between what is merely urgent and what is actually important.
We just lose the filter entirely.
Completely. The brain stops filtering. So we end up treating like a minor text message that needs a reply with the exact same physiological intensity as a major life decision.
Yeah.
Everything feels like an emergency.
Okay, I hear you on the dopamine loop and the whole crockpot analogy, but I gotta be honest, my inner devil's advocate is kind of screaming right now.
Okay, let's hear it.
Because sometimes we really do need the microwave. Like, Maya pushes back on Nick in the source material about this. Emergencies literally require rapid responses. Crises demand quick decisions.
Sure, absolutely.
Like, if a firefighter is running into a burning building, you don't want them stopping in the hallway to engage in, deep crockpot-style philosophical reflection about the nature of fire and structural integrity.
Right. No, you definitely want them to act immediately.
Exactly. Isn't speed sometimes exactly what we need to survive?
Yes. Nick actually concedes this point. Speed itself is not the enemy. Speed is an incredibly effective tool when applied to the right situation. The real danger is what happens when speed becomes the default setting of our entire lives, rather than just a specialized tool for actual emergencies.
Ah, okay. When every single minor task at our desk job is treated like a 5-alarm fire.
Precisely.
Ugh.
The toxicity of that default setting emerges when deep reflection suddenly gets culturally labeled as laziness or indecision.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Right, like when a person who pauses to carefully think through a complex problem is accused of dragging their feet or not being a team player.
Which happens all the time in corporate culture.
All the time. And if we look at the evolutionary mismatch at play here, the damage makes perfect sense. Because that primitive amygdala we talked about, it evolved in a very specific, unforgiving environment.
Right, like back in the hunter-gatherer days.
Exactly. It was built to detect immediate physical threats. A predator stalking you in the grass, a sudden violent storm, a physical confrontation. In those situations, that rapid-fire reactive speed literally kept you alive.
But wait, if evolution built us for this kind of rapid threat detection, isn't it perfectly natural for us to be on high alert? Isn't our biology just doing exactly what it was designed over millions of years to do?
The biological response is natural, yes, but the environment is completely alien.
How so?
Well, the modern world has entirely removed those literal physical predators, but it has replaced them with this ambient hum of urgency, We don't have tigers stalking us, but we have endless inboxes. We have unceasing push notifications. We have a 24-hour news cycle constantly broadcasting catastrophe. The problem is that the threat never actually resolves.
Oh, I see. Because in the ancestral environment, you ran from the tiger, you climbed the tree, you survived, and then your nervous system reset. The threat was gone. The amygdala got to rest.
Exactly. But today, the inbox is never empty. The ambient hum never, ever stops. So your amygdala is permanently switched on.
That sounds exhausting.
It is. The physiological response, the spike in cortisol, the elevated heart rate, the narrowing of focus, it is constantly running in the background.
It's kind of absurd when you really picture it. Our bodies are physically reacting to an unread email from a boss as if it were a literal tiger hiding in the bushes.
Literally.
Our heart rate goes up, our palms might sweat, we get that tunnel vision over an email. We are deploying life or death biological resources to deal with a calendar invite.
And that's why it's so dangerous. A brain that is locked in that constant, unending threat detection mode has absolutely zero cognitive bandwidth left for deep work.
Because it thinks it's dying.
Yes. You cannot engage in the complex, nuanced thinking that a functioning civilization requires if your brain is convinced it is constantly running for its life. It is structurally impossible to access the prefrontal cortex when the amygdala is screaming that you are in danger.
Wow. So what does this mean for how we raise the next generation? Because if this ambient hum of urgency is everywhere from the moment they are born, are we just doomed to be a species of stressed out microwaving sprinters?
Well, the source text introduces this idea of the blank slate theory. The pace we live at is not innate. It's learned.
Okay, so we're not born rushing.
No child is born rushing. If you watch a toddler, they will happily spend 20 minutes just staring at a single bug on the sidewalk.
That is so true. They have no concept of a schedule.
They have zero concept of hurry. They do not value efficiency. They are taught to rush by an environment, by us, by the systems we build that constantly models and enforces the idea that busyness equates to importance.
Man, that's sad. We literally condition the slow-cooking crock pot right out of them and just hand them a microwave telling them it's the only way to cook.
It's a tragic loss of potential.
But I keep thinking about the privilege of this whole conversation.
What do you mean?
Well, Maya challenges Nick on this in the dialogue. It's very easy for us to sit here and say, oh, just slow down, take a breath, take an hour to let your prefrontal cortex do its thing.
Right.
Isn't slowing down an incredible luxury? Like, what about the single mother who was working 2 jobs just to make rent? She doesn't have the privilege of pausing to reflect because pausing means losing a shift.
Exactly.
What about a laborer in a fulfillment center where every second of their movement is tracked by an algorithm? They can't just tell the assembly line to stop while they sit cross-legged and ponder the meaning of the universe. Is this entire concept of slowing down just a self-help luxury for the comfortable and privileged?
That is arguably the most critical challenge to this entire philosophy. And Nick's response to Maya is really profound.
Yeah.
For millions of people, pausing is not an option. It is a direct threat to their economic survival.
Right.
But the fact that the people who most need time to think are the ones denied it isn't a personal failing. It is a systemic failure.
A systemic failure, meaning it's baked into the actual design of how we live and work.
Exactly. Think about the cruelty of that design. The people facing the hardest life decisions, like how to afford healthcare, how to feed their kids, how to navigate complex bureaucracies, they are operating under the most crushing pressure.
And they're the ones completely stripped of the cognitive time and space required to make those wise choices.
Yes. The cognitive tax of poverty or relentless systemic pressure literally steals the bandwidth needed for the prefrontal cortex to operate.
That is brutal.
It is. A civilization that exhausts its citizens to the bone just to survive and then turns around and blames them for failing to think deeply or make quote-unquote good choices. That is fundamentally not a wise civilization. It's a broken one.
It's such a dark irony, isn't it? Society runs us into the ground, traps us on the treadmill, speeds it up, and then turns around and tries to sell us a $20 a month mindfulness app to help us cope with the exact exhaustion the system created in the first place.
It really is.
We are quite literally commodifying the cure for a disease we purposefully engineered.
Exactly. And to counter that, the excerpt discusses this concept of an infallible society.
Oh, right. What does that actually look like?
Well, the goal of a truly advanced, wise society isn't to just demand that exhausted, burnt-out people try harder to meditate between their double shifts.
Right. That doesn't solve anything.
No, it doesn't. The goal is to fundamentally design environments where basic survival doesn't drain every single drop of your cognitive resources.
So in this hypothetical infallible society, the environment is structured so that you aren't constantly fighting the tiger just to pay rent.
Exactly.
Which means your natural capacity for reflection, for creativity, for actual wisdom, it finally has the room to emerge on its own. You don't have to force the crock pot to turn on. You just finally have the time to plug it in.
Beautifully said. The worship of speed is not just some bad personal habit we all collectively picked up because we lack discipline.
Right.
It is an architectural feature of the modern world. The economic system itself is built on and profits from this constant acceleration and distraction.
So questioning our need to constantly rush, feeling that friction when we're told we have to reply in 5 seconds, that isn't a sign of laziness.
Not at all.
It's not a lack of work ethic. It's actually the first necessary step in reclaiming our minds from a system that is perfectly designed to exploit our primitive brain structure.
Absolutely. Because a mind that never pauses never has the opportunity to ask whether the direction it is running is actually the right one.
Wow. Yeah, you can be running a 4-minute mile on the treadmill, you can be sweating, your heart can be pounding, you can feel incredibly productive.
But if the treadmill is facing a brick wall, your speed doesn't matter.
Right, you're just going to hit the wall faster.
Exactly. And scale that up from the individual to society at large. A civilization made up entirely of unpaused minds is a civilization that is accelerating completely blindly.
That is terrifying.
We are moving faster and faster, inventing technologies faster and faster, disrupting industries faster and faster, toward a destination we haven't even had the time to evaluate. We are optimizing for speed without ever defining the goal.
That is a staggering thought to apply to our daily reality. Because you, the listener, you feel this every single day. You feel the blindness of that acceleration. So we want to leave you with a direct challenge based on everything we've uncovered today.
Yeah, we want you to evaluate your own pace.
Exactly.
Pay close attention to your impulses today. Notice the very next time you experience a moment of silence. Maybe you're waiting in line at the grocery store, or sitting at a red light, or even just standing in your kitchen waiting for the kettle to boil.
Which is usually when I grab my phone, to be honest.
Right, and that's the point. Notice the automatic, almost involuntary urge to reach into your pocket for your device, to fill that tiny pocket of silence with speed,
Yeah.
to give the dopamine system its hit.
When you feel that urge, remember that you are holding the remote control to the treadmill, at least in that tiny micro moment. You can choose not to press the speed button.
You can just choose to stand there.
Yeah, you can choose to let the microwave sit empty and let the crock pot simmer.
Because if we don't start reclaiming those moments of stillness, if we don't allow our prefrontal cortex the time it needs to do the deep work of being human, the consequences are severe. A society that cannot pause is a society that cannot think.
Which brings us to a final, slightly haunting thought to leave you with.
Okay.
We've established that this modern, speed-obsessed system forces us to abandon our slow-thinking prefrontal cortex, right?
Yeah.
And rely almost entirely on our primitive, threat-detecting survival instincts.
Right.
So as you look around at the world today, at the massive global challenges we are facing, the climate, the economy, artificial intelligence, if everyone is stuck on this same treadmill, are the most consequential decisions shaping our entire future currently being made by the evolutionary equivalent of panicked cavemen?
Wow. That is a question that requires some serious unhurried time to think about.
Let it simmer.